So in January 2019, we had some terror attacks at the premises of work where we lost colleagues and friends who died. Then the hotel was closed down. So from then it was so traumatizing. So I had to take my time to heal. As I started to heal, I did my farming project and started to tarmac because I have bills to pay, I have loans to pay. I had some constructions to do back at home. That's when I met another lady. She told me she takes people to Bahrain. And she told me to give me her number. That was the day before I was going for an interview somewhere. I was introduced to her through my brother-in-law. And after the interview, I told her I will call her back. Then she was like, what have you studied? Kindly send me your CV. I can get you a good job in Bahrain. So before that, I Googled about Bahrain. I wanted to know more about Bahrain. And in the Google, it shows that it's a small country with a population of 1 million people. And there are so many expatriates. So I didn't think that it has some issues like other Gulf countries. So I was comfortable to share my passport copy with her through WhatsApp. And she ended up like hooking up with an agency in Bahrain, the ones who processed my visa and everything. Everything happened within a week. It was too fast. And she called me like, tomorrow you're traveling. We want us to meet at the airport. I didn't even know her office, and that's how I ended up going there and experience what I experienced.
So you said that everything happened within a week in terms of speaking to this agent, and of course also getting all your documentation in order. Just to clarify from you, was this one of the agents that is on the list of agencies that are accredited by the Ministry of Labour? Were you aware that that is the usual procedure?
No, I wasn't aware, because that day when I met her, she was like escorting some ladies to the airport. And she told me if I don't have a job, I can always contact her. So I thought she's a genuine person, because when I handed over my passport to her, through WhatsApp, when we were chatting, she introduced me to the other agent in Bahrain. And the agent in Bahrain was so promising, only to realize that she's not even registered in Bahrain, and she's not also registered here in Kenya. So I regret, because I made a mistake. And I would like other Kenyans to be keen. When they hear about the jobs in the Gulf, they need to investigate first and know more details about the recruitment agencies.
All right, Idah, thank you for that. And just moving on to your arrival now. When did you arrive in Bahrain, and perhaps what happened when you got there, and how would you describe your living and working conditions during your time there?
Okay, before I traveled, the agent in Bahrain connected me with a lady. She told me there's a lady who works in the office in Bahrain, and she told me she's going to give the lady my number. So we started communicating with the lady, and the lady told me she's doing some studies and she might give me a job at the office because she's going to get a promotion at work. And she told me I won't have a problem with a place to stay because she's going to host me. And when I arrived, I left Kenya on Thursday, the 7th November 2019. And I arrived at Bahrain on 8th. I was on transit in Dubai for close to 15 hours. So the agent in Bahrain was waiting for me. She had told me to take a photograph of me and another Kenyan lady because we were only two going. But the list that I had for my traveling and insurance and everything else was brought by another agency. It's not the lady's documents, but now she has attached other documents with my visa and medical. So at the airport is when she handed over the documents at the Jomo Kenyatta airport. And when I got inside the airport, my mom took me in because she has the pass. So we entered, we checked in, and the airline told me that my cargo, the suitcase, I'm not carrying anything because they didn't pay for it, even food. So I was like starving for like 24 hours. When I arrived in Bahrain, I'm meeting strangers, not the lady that I was talking to, because the agent told me the lady is not around, so I'm going with these strangers to their place, and she can't take me to her place because she has another Kenyan. So I was like, I don't have anyone or anywhere to go. I'll just go with the couple. I went with the couple to their place. And when I arrived there, the lady was working for Ministry of Education and the husband works for the airline. I didn't know that I was going to work as a domestic worker. It was my first experience. And I met other Ethiopian ladies in the family who were going through some hardships, and we didn't communicate well because they don't know English and they're being mistreated too. So from that day, I was traumatized and I became more like, I was feeling like I'm afraid. I don't have communication. I've not communicated with my family because the only person I could communicate with was my agent from Kenya. I told her about the situation, what happened. I didn't find the people who were supposed to pick me. I was picked by strangers. She didn't inform me that. So she was like not responding back to my chats until the day that I told her I'm going to commit suicide. Is when she saw that I'm serious, and she told the other agent in Bahrain to keep an eye on me. So the lady told the couple that I'm not comfortable to work as a domestic worker in their house. And when I told them that I'm no longer interested with the work, I want to resign, they were like, you didn't come here for holiday and you're supposed to work for us. You'll work without salary for 3 months. I told them, you'd never told me, I never knew you, so I won't listen to your terms. I want to quit this job. Even if it's taking me to the police, I don't mind. So that's how I left the job that I worked for like a month. Then they told me they won't give me my documents until they like take them back to the agency so that they can cancel the visa. So I was taken back to the agency. There's an apartment for staff, the ones who are doing cleaning and other jobs, even hospitality jobs. But because I'm a Kenyan, they don't give Kenyans an opportunity to work in different jobs. That was the rule for that agency. So I had to go to work to another residence. Yeah, so I ended up being sold to another family that I was supposed to stay for 3 months. They ended up taking a visa for 2 years without my consent and without asking me. So the agency had told me I'm just going to stay there until they finish the processing of my visa cancellation so that I can come back home. So the process was to end in March. When I reminded the next family that I was working for that I'm supposed to return back to my country and my mom is ready to pay for my ticket, they were like, you didn't come here for holiday and we're giving you 10 minutes to leave our compound. So I didn't know anyone. I called the police, and that's how I met the Migrant Rights Organization and had Kenya through the police. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. And as I said earlier, it takes a lot of courage for you to share this story. So thank you for having that courage. When you were still in Bahrain, did you have any opportunity to interact with other Kenyans, both men and women working there? We've heard from Ali that Kenyans are working in the doing domestic work. They're working in other sectors as well. But based on your interactions with some of the Kenyans, what kind of work were they doing and how did you describe the experiences?
Okay, the first time I met a Kenyan lady in a restaurant as I went out with my employers, and she gave me her contact. So the police officers, they asked me if I know any Kenyan who can accommodate me because the shelters were closed due to COVID-19 pandemic. So I couldn't leave the police station until this Kenyan lady could come and release me from the police, because we don't have a Kenyan embassy in Bahrain. And Kenyan representatives, like volunteers who are helping Kenyans, are always overwhelmed with work and they can't respond to calls at the police station. So the police officers filed for me a case so that I can get back my documents. So the Kenyan lady told me because she's working for the hotel, she can't accommodate me. It might ruin her career. She will get me a Kenyan lady who can house me and maybe we can share rent. So that's the time I went to the streets and I started to live outside in the city. I met different Kenyan ladies, both women and men. During that time, it was in March and April. Most of them had lost their jobs because of the pandemic. Most restaurants, malls were closed down. Some cleaning companies have already fired their employees. And when I interacted with some Kenyans, some are stranded, they don't have their documents, they don't have their passports. They went through some abuse and hostility while they were doing jobs as domestic workers. That's why they escaped and they decided to start staying on their own. Some are working in different places, some in supermarkets. Other women are like into prostitution because of the challenges of paying rent and buying food. But I used to talk to them and encourage them to report the matter to the police so that they can get back their documents and they can be helped come back home instead of suffering in a country that they don't know anyone. But in December, the government of Bahrain had announced that it will deport people back who don't have documents. So I think most of them have taken an action of going to the LMRA office to report that they ran away from work, and they are tracing their employers so that they may get back their documents. But these agencies, they usually ask the Kenyans who went to Bahrain to return back the money, to refund the money for visa. Like myself, I was told to refund back 700 dinar. And I won the case because I didn't sign anything. I didn't have any records showing that they had paid for me 700 dinar. So the police told me I have a right to get back my documents. And the agency is the one to blame because now this boss is innocent. He didn't know that I was going to stay for 3 months. The office lied to me that I'm going for 3 months, but then they extended my stay when they were canceling the visa for the first employer. But he apologized, I dropped the charges against the boss. Now the case was between me and the agency. So after my case, the agency was closed down. And right now, I have some Kenyans who are still staying in the same agency. I communicate with them. They're still going through hardships inside that office because they're supposed to pay the money for visa so that they can get back home. That's a challenge. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Idah. Before I ask my final question, I think just a point of clarity. You of course went to Bahrain expecting to work in an office, and then you ended up working as a domestic worker in two separate homes. During that period of time, and from my understanding, from what you've shared with us, it was in total under 6 months of work. Were you paid at all by those two employers?
The first employer said that he won't pay me. They never paid me because they said I will work for 3 months without anything. And the other employer, the second one, told me I was on orientation for the 3 months. And after some time, she confirmed that because we were two, I was like working as a chef. And there's another Ethiopian lady who was doing the cleaning jobs. But sometimes she could tell me, because this other lady is not doing anything, I'm not going to pay you. And I told her, I didn't sign any contract with you. You have a right to pay me. That's when she realized she's doing something bad. She only paid me for like 2 months. That was in January and February. So March salary was not paid. And when she like kicked me out of her compound, I left my academic books and other important things because she ordered me to be returned back to Kenya. And she wants me to refund back the money she paid at the agency. She didn't want to understand anything that I didn't sign a contract with her. So they had my salary and my other books and even my clothes. So the agency threw me on the streets when I called the police. They had me calling the police because I was working and I had the first employer had assaulted me physically. So I had an injury on my shoulder. and I wanted to seek some medical attention before I returned back home. So I called the police and I told them everything, that I want to go to the hospital and I don't have the money for the hospital. I was not paid. I don't have my passport. I don't have my CPR number, and I can't be treated without them. That's when the boss was called and he returned back my documents, only the passport without salary.
Thank you for that. And maybe another point of clarification on the documentation. You've mentioned that some of the Kenyans you also speak to are struggling because they might have the money for the tickets to come back home, but they don't have access to the documents, to their passports, and of course, any other relevant documentation they need to leave the country and come back home. What happens to the documents? Where are these documents? What usually happens when you arrive in Bahrain as a migrant worker? Where do these documents go to?
Okay, first of all, when you land at the airport, the agent is always waiting for you with the boss. So for me, I had my insurance from Kenya for 1.6 million that could cover for my return or medical, and other letters that were attached plus visa. So my first employer took that envelope and she never returned it back. Even when I wanted to go to the hospital, I told them I have an insurance, I want to go to the hospital. They refused me to go. So you find out that when you try to air about what you're going through, they like block you. So most of these Kenyans, they just escape. It's like you're going to throw trash outside the gate. That's when you disappear. Maybe very early in the morning, you can run away and go to the police station and report your boss. And maybe your boss can come there so that you can solve the matter. And some bosses, they don't even care. They let those Kenyans to just go without anything, without passports. Now, when they meet other Kenyans is when they stay together and they're recruited to other things. Some have been working, they've saved some money, but they don't have documents to come back, even passports. And when they go to the LMRA office, the records for the agents and boss, they're not seen. I have some friends that I've been communicating with. They want to come back, but they don't have the documents to come back. But they have saved some money. If they come back, they can start doing some small businesses and empower themselves.
Thank you for that, Idah. And perhaps during the Q&A session, Ali could clarify what options these Kenyans who have the money to pay for the tickets but don't have the documentation have in terms of processing this documentation that they need to come back home. But moving on to my final question, Idah, so you're back to Kenya now. Maybe a clarification of when you came back. But now that you've been back for a couple of months, just looking back on your experiences of going to Bahrain and living and working there, are there any things in the entire journey, from the time you made a decision to actually travel, to the time you actually arrived, to your work experiences there, and to your repatriation back home? Is there anything that could have gone better or you could have done differently? And again, are there any recommendations you might have? Because we have on this webinar today, colleagues from trade union organizations. We have colleagues listening in from non-government organizations in Kenya who work with migrant workers. And we also have media as well. Is there anything you would recommend to any of these actors in Kenya in terms of, how to ensure that some of these challenges you've highlighted could be addressed?
Okay, first of all, I would like to, when I was in Bahrain, I used to tell ladies that they shouldn't be doing some bad things over there, because if they're arrested, they'll be deported back. For me, I made a decision to return back because I really needed to find peace. And I was going through some depression. And I met Heart Kenya. They got me a therapist who's worked with me throughout the entire journey in Bahrain when I was staying on my own, because I experienced some difficulties even when I was staying with the Kenyans. Some had tried to recruit me to join prostitution, but I told them I'm dignified. I can't do some things. I'd rather go back home. even if that's how you make your money and send money back home, it's better you come back and start something. So for me, back to empower women and anyone who wants to go to work in those Gulf countries, they should do a research first and not to trust any agent who had promised them a job. Because if you go there and you're taken to a place where you didn't expect, you will go through some traumatic experiences, some sort of depression and hating yourself. Some Kenyans also have been like doing crimes. Some have committed suicide. Some have been beating up their employers. I met Kenyans who told me they came out of prison because they maybe fought with their bosses who didn't pay them. So for me, I'll advise them to return back so that they may do something back at home. It's better you suffer in your country than suffer in a foreign country. Because in Kenya, you can do a lot. You can do farming, you can do businesses, even with a little capital. We can join hands and do projects. Like myself, I'm doing recycling projects. And these projects, they are going to create jobs. I'm looking forward to creating jobs to the unemployed youths through my recycling projects. And I know these projects can extend even globally. And I thank God because through my experience in Bahrain, I also met the migrant rights organization that also supported me. I didn't have any income, but they used to cater for my rent, for my medication, for my food during the COVID-19. They could come and pick me up wherever I have a case to go, maybe at the police station. I had a driver, I had protection from the Arabs. And because I was told, like a Kenyan, if you like go to the police and report your boss, you might end up being assaulted. There's a time a police officer called me to find out where I was staying. And I told that officer, I can't disclose because I've already filed my case at the police station. I'm waiting for the police to call me so that I can get my documents. So you don't have the right to know where I'm staying. Right now, I'm under protection. So I thank God because I met the organization over there. I didn't know it existed. Well, we don't have a Kenyan embassy. I tried to reach out to different people in the country. Through my experience before I met the organization, I wrote a message to our governor, Charity Ngilu. I even wrote a message to the deputy president of Kenya, telling them about my experience, if they could help me raise the money so that I could refund back to the boss and return home. But they read the messages, but they never responded. So we have a big problem in Bahrain. We don't have any representative who represents Kenyans. Even the social workers are busy. Even when you call them, they don't respond back to the calls. Like I met the representatives when I was coming back home after all that time. Yet I had their contacts. I didn't have a shelter to go. That's why I ended up staying with my fellow Kenyans who are doing these illegal businesses.
Okay, Idah, thank you so much for sharing that.